Welcome to this extraordinary council meeting. I'm going to ask my orator to say a few words.
Nor storm, nor rot, nor lightning strike has felled this mighty tree. A proper age and a sense of rightness have gently laid her branches low. Of a sudden, the shelter, landmark, measure of our lives is now uprooted, sending myriad colonies of harboured creatures flapping, screeching, wheeling. But soon another crown is found, planted in the same soil, compassing the same fields, green and growing in the light of the same heavens. So roosting, breeding, feeding, and squabbling for pecking order can resume. Symbol of restoration and renewal, where a defeated Charles hid then fled before a nation called him home. Our generation's Charles will grace the Royal Arboretum. The oak is dead. Long live the oak. The oak is dead. Long live the oak. If you are able, please stand and we will observe a minute's silence.
Today's meeting is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking, and if you would rather sit when doing so, please do so. It will not be treated as a mark of disrespect. Can we start with apologies for absence?
Apologies of absence have been received from Councillors Desara, Denham, Amos and Outtag, and Councillor Hassan. Mr Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. There is one notice of motion on the agenda. You'll see that written in front of you, relating to the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and the accession of King Charles III. The motion is that the Council makes the following address upon the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. and the accession of King Charles III. To His Most Excellent Majesty King Charles III, we, the Mayor and Councillors of the City of Worcester, hereby assembled in an extraordinary meeting of the Council, do most humbly offer to Your Majesty and to all members of our royal family our profound and sincere sympathy upon the loss of Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Our late Queen has for over 70 years been an example and inspiration to us all through her unswerving and selfless devotion to the people of our nation and the Commonwealth. We remember with pride the occasions on which Her late Majesty visited this faithful city, allowing us to show our sincere and lasting affection for her. We give thanks for a life nobly lived. May we assure Your Majesty of the continued devotion of our city, which throughout the ages has remained ever faithful to the Crown in peace and in war. We tender to Your Majesty upon your accession the loyal congratulations of the citizens of Worcester, and we extend to Your Majesty our sincere best wishes for a long and prosperous reign. In proposing that motion, I would say, of course, that less than a week ago, we were seeing pictures of two Prime Ministers in one day meeting the Queen and even joking about that situation. But watching the cortege leave Balmoral this morning has really brought home that the Queen has died and we are living in a momentous part of our national history. Like all of you, I think, I grew up with the Queen. My parents, before they were married, had camped out in the rain to see the coronation in London. My grandma had a 100th birthday card from her. The Christmas message was de rigueur for all my household throughout my childhood, and interestingly, beyond, even if only now as recorded later on the evening. When you toasted the Queen in our house, it was followed by the words of the Duke of Lancaster. She was very important to my home county, and I first saw her at a sewage farm as a scout in a lineup near Garstang. For my generation, without the shackles of a wartime memory, she was an important element of constitutional study, of TV news, and of sporting events. Sometimes views did not stray far from indifference, but from Andy Warhol to the Sex Pistols and the band The Queen thrown in, culminating perhaps in Virginia Wade winning Wimbledon, there seemed something timeless, something permanent about her. As an historian, I have always followed the great events, the investiture of the Prince of Wales, Anne's wedding when we got a colour telly for the first time, the funeral of the abdicated King Edward, and Diana, of course. And there are pages and words around us, back-to-back TV programmes, dramas, imaginations. We like to think we know what we thought of her, what she thought about her Prime Ministers, Churchill, Wilson, Blair and Thatcher. She seemed a step ahead of her own generation when confronting diversity through her promotion of the Commonwealth. And her most recent project, the Green Canopy, put a stamp on the very real concern of climate change. For Worcester, she visited several times. We call ourselves the Faithful City, and we already have two statues of Charles on the front of this building. With its royal tombs and the bishop's connections as the High Almoner, our engagement with the royal family and the nation are direct and obvious. Like many of you, I've been to lunch with the Queen here in this building, and I was pleased to meet and talk to her about her namesake's visit in 1575 at the opening of the Hive. And I was then honoured to be invited to a garden party in recognition of the First World War project across the county. And that was one of only a few that year at which she made an appearance. These memories are part of my life, but similar ones are part of yours. But at the end of the day, as a 7-year-old put it on the television yesterday, she is the only Queen I've known. And if you are 7 or 70, that will surely remain the case. I'd like to invite the group leaders to pay their own tributes. First of all, the Leader of the Council to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my sorrowful duty to rise to second the motion on the order paper before us today. Her late Majesty was loved and cherished across the length and breadth of this country, and never more so than here in her faithful city of Worcester. She was a constant in an era of change. She was the very centre of our national calendar. It was the Queen that we watched and listened to on Christmas Day. The Queen who distributed Maundy money at Easter. The Queen who took the salute at the Trooping of the Colour in June, and the Queen who laid the first wreath at the Cenotaph in November. Her late Majesty was the hub around which all events in this country span. Her Majesty was also the very living embodiment of our national anthem. She was gracious, she was noble, she was victorious, and there is no doubt that she was glorious. She did defend our laws, and I believe did ever give us cause to pray for the long reign that we had. So much so that it made it possible to believe that she would never leave us. Even of late, as we have all seen that she had become more frail, it is still difficult to imagine our country without her gentle guidance. Personally, I was lucky enough to be present here when Her Majesty was here on the last time she visited the city in 2012. It is a day that I shall never forget. The warmth with which the crowds and the people of Worcester welcomed her to her city, many who queued for hours to snatch a glimpse of her and the Duke of Edinburgh. The lunch given in her honour was just outside this room, and despite her being small and diminutive in nature, her presence filled the assembly room. Her Majesty leaves us as a nation, which I believe is much stronger than in 1952, when Britain was still recovering from the ravages of the war. Today, the UK is more tolerant, is more diverse, and more welcoming. Her Majesty played a huge and unique part in achieving those things. She has left us a legacy and an inheritance. Her son, our new king, has already committed to continuing her work. I'm sure I speak for us all when I say we wish him the very best as he takes up the heavy burden of responsibility with a woman he loves, our new Queen, at his side. I'm sure in time our new King, Charles III, will visit us and stand in the gateway, flanked by his two previous namesakes. As she would have wanted, I conclude by offering the salutation, God save the King.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen.
Thank you. I'm going to speak on behalf of the Green councillors. What can we say when so many people have spoken already such kind and wise words, both here in Worcester and across the whole country and across the whole world? For me, the most poignant remarks made by others have not been about pomp, the offices of state and sovereignty, but about her as a human being. As many will have seen, ex-Prime Minister Theresa May made a lovely speech in the Commons where she relayed a lovely anecdote about dropping the cheese on the floor and looking round to the Queen, who knowingly smiled to say she too followed the 2-second rule for dropping something on the floor. Former Home Secretary Harriet Harman also gave a moving speech, reminding us of the circumstances of the Queen coming to the throne as a 25-year-old woman in what was then very much a man's world. That she was such a strong female voice, it must surely have been an inspiration to women literally across the country and across the whole world, that women too can have a leadership role. Coming closer to home, I was taken by some words written by Richard Udall in a tweet. Essentially, that any high-profile death like this is also a time when we also naturally think about our own lives and the family members and close friends we've personally lost. So what can I say that follows the very many wise words made by others? Only that the Queen worked hard and with great dignity for our country for over 70 years, outlasting generations of politicians in seeing huge changes in the world. My thoughts are with her family as they mourn her death. Thank you.
Councillor Riaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's difficult to follow some of the words that have been said already, so I've got a small message from Lynn and I'll add some words of my own. Queen Elizabeth II is the only British Queen most of us have ever known. She has been an unfailing presence throughout our lives, whilst politicians have come and gone and that the world has changed. Looking at the footage of the Queen's ascent to the throne in 1952, it was an extraordinary duty to place a young woman of 25 years old. We are all fortunate that this young woman had the character and the skills to take on that job. She has been a model of public service, of dedication to duty throughout her life. Our Queen set a very high standard of leadership over the years, demonstrating empathy and wisdom. Her guidance has ever been valued by every UK Prime Minister since Churchill. She must have met and talked to nearly every world leader, yet Her Majesty never lost touch with life in Britain and the public mood. Even into her 90s, she was alert and interested in our future. The frail old lady has earned the right to rest in peace. Mr. Mayor, I wish to add some words of my own. From my perspective, Mr. Mayor, as a son of a migrant, the Queen, my father always used to remind me, embodied all the values of what early migrants since the partition from the Indian subcontinent epitomised. Hard work, dedication, loyalty, family, integrity, and a deep commitment to her faith. These values have been exemplified and how she managed herself throughout the toughest of times, both personally and in the public domain. Her resilience as a mother, international stateswoman, both dignified and elegant in her manner, her character is the standard we should all hold ourselves up to, now more than ever. As for the King, as for the new King, Mr. Mayor, in probably the longest serving apprenticeship in history, he has gone out of his way to learn, to understand new religions, to embrace new cultures. He even suggested at one point changing the title of becoming Defender of the Faiths. Considering that the King now resides over a kingdom that is truly multicultural and cosmopolitan, that reflects the Commonwealth, it shows how far the monarchy has come in our lifetime, and that they reign over and offer safety and security. I wish King Charles III all the very best in healing us, in helping us move forward in this post-Elizabeth era. Long live the King.
Thank you. Councillor Olcott.
Mayor, thank you. Thank you. So many people have said so much, so I will keep it brief. I'd just like to say a huge, huge thank you. She has always been here, and particularly we will remember when we had bad times, and I remember in the lockdown when she did her speech and she said, "We won't meet again." Sorry. But she's been here for us sort of through all the good times, and I would just, rather than become a gibbering wreck, just draw on the light things. I think James Bond, Paddington, she was always in touch with the nation. She always brought a lot of joy to us too. Thank you.
Thank you. Having heard from the group leaders, I'll now invite any other members who would like to express their comments. I haven't got a pen, but I shall try and keep a note of who's going forward. Thank you. Councillor Lamb, I think, is first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to support this motion and pay tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth II. This is a sad and very difficult time for our country. Some claim that a monarchy in itself is irrational and outdated. I do not agree. Human beings are sometimes insecure creatures who crave stability and consistency. People need symbols, people need blazons. And this country and this city has gone through enormous change in the 70 years of the Queen's reign. It has transformed from a wearying imperial titan to a diverse, tolerant and multicultural nation. Through this change, which some people have found unsettling, the Queen has been a symbol of consistency, helping guide us through the transition. To use the words of Edmund Burke, the Queen has linked the past, the present and the yet to come like a golden thread. The Queen has embodied the values that I hope that we in this council aspire to: duty, service and sacrifice. And too often these days we focus on the short term, the instant and the transient. And the Queen embodied a stoicism which is too easy to dismiss. She not only had to guide our country through a transformation, but also had to deal with her own family upheaval and the death of her beloved husband. That she was able to do so successfully and without complaint is a mark of her unique figure and character as a monarch. As Prince Philip himself once said when asked about his own turbulent youth and how he coped with it, he stated simply, "You get on with it, you just have to." So I think the Queen also left the monarchy strengthened. She knew how to balance the traditional and the modern. As Britain has changed, so the Queen has ensured that the monarchy, whilst remaining a constant, has updated as well. Whilst we are united in sorrow, I hope we are also united in hope and optimism about our new King, King Charles III, who I know will continue her legacy. Thank you.
Councillor Lucy Hodgson.
Thank you. It started early the day the Queen visited Worcester and opened the Hive. I passed the Guildhall and the glove bunting was going up and the area was pressure washed and clean. I was lucky enough to have a ticket to the opening of the Hive, as I was cabinet member for customer service, and I was standing close to the customer service centre and I saw the Queen close to, and she was radiant in pink and her cheeks looked like porcelain. And certainly she had a busy day with lunch at the Guildhall, a walk around and the service in the cathedral. I also attended a garden party at the end of my mayoral year and the Queen was there. However, it poured with rain and the Queen stayed in the royal tent and had her tea and didn't depart early. And of course, the band played on. I met the new King on 2 occasions. When I was mayor, he came to Worcester to reopen the commandery following extensive restoration. I had the pleasure of shaking his hand, though Camilla did, they did go into the hairdressers beforehand, and he sort of, he sort of almost didn't shake my hand because it was a bit, but whilst I was there, he paid a bill. Charles I hadn't paid, he paid a bill that Charles II hadn't paid. Charles's men arrived in the city before Cromwell, and the mayor at the time agreed to new uniforms for his soldiers. And Charles II said that he would pay once he'd won the battle. Well, of course, history shows that he lost, and Charles ran away. So the bill was not paid. And the Guild of Clothiers wrote to Prince Charles, and Prince Charles was agreed that he would pay the bill of about £600. And he duly paid it, and the money was in a cloth bag made by the Shakespeare Company in Stratford. And the Guild of Clothiers celebrated with a very expensive bottle of port. But every one of us has tales to tell, and we really have not experienced anything like this. And each of us has its own memories. We all will mourn the loss of the Queen, and we heard the proclamation, and which was read so well by Adrian. So, God save the King, and rest in peace, Your Majesty.
Councillor Agar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very solemn occasion, and since there are no nonagenarians in the chamber, I'm assuming that we've all grown up, as you've remarked, Mr. Mayor, during the second Elizabethan era. Her late Majesty the Queen was rightly named the matriarch of the nation. I prefer to give her today the more prosaic title Mother of the Nation, because more than anyone who held the role of monarch, she epitomised family values as well as carrying out her regal duties, and did so much to humanise the monarchy. She visited Worcester on a number of occasions, and it was my privilege to be Deputy Mayor on the occasion of her last Jubilee visit in 2012. The Mayor being Councillor Roger Berry, who received her for lunch in this building. He told me later his knees were knocking together and the Mayoress needed a stiff drink before the occasion. Worcester is, of course, a royalist city, despite losing, the parliamentarians winning the last battle here. And it bears the name, the proud name, of Faithful City. I think the loyalty of the people of Worcester to their late Queen was without question. But now we begin a new Carolingian era. So we say in all loyalty, long live King Charles III.
And Councillor Udall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've all got our own memories and of what we were doing and where we were when we heard the sad news last week. But I can remember growing up in the period of the Queen's reign. In 1977, I was aged 8 when I was told off at school for telling a joke about the Queen's crown falling off. But I still managed to get my silver Jubilee spoon, my mug and my coin, and I still have them at home, and I still kept them as prized possessions. I remember in 1980, Maundy Thursday, the Queen coming to Worcester. Not many people probably are in this chamber who can remember that, but I watched with my brother and my grandmother for what felt like hours for her to walk past me and for the Duke of Edinburgh to do the same. I can remember this year leading the conga down Lawn Road to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee. And I've got great memories of Paddington as well, as we all have. And Paddington, of course, is obviously a big fan of the late Queen. Mr. Mayor, it doesn't matter if you're a royalist or not, we are all human. Nobody could have failed to have been moved by the events of the last few days. Nobody could have failed to show respect for the late Queen's dedication of duty and service. Nobody could have failed to have been moved and to enjoy the time when she appeared with Paddington. But as the transition happens and the new sovereign takes place, we will all move forward as a city and as a nation, I believe we are now more united and more free than at any other time in our history. I'm confident that the King's leadership will continue to guide us, inspire us and unify us. God save the King.
Thank you. I see no other hands. I think not only here but across all we've been watching over the last few days and no doubt to come over the next couple of weeks. Similar sentiments are being expressed and I'm sure that you will be sharing those with your friends and family in other quarters as well. So thank you very much for your comments, and can I, in summing up, formally move that motion and see those in favour? Thank you very much, that's unanimous. I will ask the Managing Director to ensure that that is sent forthwith. Before we leave, there's just one item of any other business. Because the Queen's funeral is going to be held on Monday the 19th, and that is now a bank holiday, there is a difficulty in terms of how many working days there are until the next council, which is scheduled for Tuesday the 20th. So we have decided not to proceed with that council meeting on the 20th. There is another council meeting which was set up for the 17th of October, which was intended to look at the SWDP. That will now be a full council meeting, all business, including the SWDP part of the agenda. So everything will simply roll forward. I hope that you accept that decision. Okay, thank you very much. If you care to join us for refreshments, I believe they are available in the assembly room afterwards.